Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy Patrick, and I'm back with another Bodyshot podcast episode. This is episode 6 now. And today what we're going to do is I just want to talk about the UFC Fight Night, Convington versus Woodley, that happened over the weekend. And besides that, there is only one piece of MMA news that I would like to talk about. And that is that Michael Chandler, from the lightweight Bellator champion, finally got signed with the UFC. And not only did he get signed with the UFC, but he is apparently on standby for the Khabib and Justin Gaethje fight, just in case one of them drops out, to step in as a late replacement. Which is on one hand, it's cool that he came over to the UFC finally, but on the other hand, that's just like a bitch slap to all the other people that are waiting in line for the title shot, like Charles Oliveira. Oliveira probably earned his title shot against Kevin Lee. So it wasn't too long ago that Kevin Lee was fighting Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight championship. So yeah, honestly, if Michael Chandler does fight Khabib or Justin Gaethje, I think the Gaethje fight will be a little bit more interesting, just because I don't know, against Khabib, like Michael Chandler is a very, very good, I don't know actually, he's a very good wrestler. You see all his training videos with like Kamaru Usman where he's just like doing all these crazy scrambles and all these crazy like funk rolls, and he has a really good takedown defense. Obviously, he's like a really amazing wrestler, but I just feel like his style of fighting is more, he comes forward and he looks for the big right overhand right, and that just might play into getting easy takedowns for Khabib. Versus if he was facing like now Justin Gaethje kind of has like this new way of fighting. He's more like he's kind of like a point fighter now, instead of like a hands glued to your head type of walk you down fighter. So I think that would be like a pretty interesting fight. Anyways, let's talk about this UFC Fight Night Convington versus Woodley card. So actually, I'll just start with the Convington and the Woodley fight, because that's probably why everybody is listening to the podcast right now. That's probably the one that people were most excited for last night. So Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley. This was just a case of Woodley performing how he's been performing like his last couple performances. Just back against the cage, scared to open up, and just getting held down and held against the cage and beat up. And this time he ended up breaking his ribs for it. Woodley has this problem that he really is like kind of like the definition of a big takedown and big punch. He's kind of like what, could be a champion back in the day. Like, 10 years ago, you could be like a UFC champion just by having like a really big overhand right and a really good double leg, like Johnny Hendricks. That was basically what Johnny Hendricks was, and he was the welterweight champion. And so Woodley is basically, that's his thing, is that he has the big overhand right and the big double leg takedown. The one bad habit that Woodley has, though, is that he always pushes himself up. He voluntarily always is circling very close to the fence. And the problem with this is that when you're circling near the fence, is that this is just like really bad ringcraft. One, you are compromising your stance, because if the opponent is taking up the space in front of you and you're pressed up against the cage, you got to bring your legs will naturally come closer together, right? So that compromises your stance, because as you probably know, you should know, well, the way that you get power in your punches is by being able to, get into your long stance. The longer your stance is, the better, right? So if your stance collapses underneath you, you won't be able to, take those big step ups into your punch. So one, you're basically just putting yourself at a mechanical advantage for power punching. And two, you have nowhere to, you can't move back if your opponent, like the main defense against somebody who's attacking you, like in striking, is that like it's all distance. As long as you're out of range, your opponent can't hit you. And the way that you get out of range is by taking a step back or pivoting, just using your footwork to make sure that you're out of range. A lot of that is done by backtracking. And Woodley, he backs himself up against the fence, and then because he's against the fence, he has no distance to wade into if the opponent comes at him. And another big problem is that Woodley, he has the really strong wrestling, but he rarely ever goes to it. He rarely is like shooting the double leg offensively. It's usually just like as a reaction. And his big overhand right, the problem is that, yeah, you can have a big overhand right that can end the fight at any time. The thing is that if your opponent, like right at the very beginning, Colby Covington ducked, like Woodley was doing some good stuff right at the beginning. He caught a kick and he threw his own leg kick, which is what I would love to see from Woodley because his arsenal on the feet is so limited. He also was throwing like a long right hook to the body, which is like something you want to see because, you know, he has a really good overhand right to the head. Then you can use that as a double attack. You can throw the right hook to the body, and then the opponent starts dropping their left elbow to deal with it, and then you fake the right hook to the body and come over top. And then Woodley's kicks, he doesn't have to be like a really technically good kicker, but he's just a really strong dude, athletic dude. He can kick the crap out of anybody, and it's gonna hurt. His legs are huge, but he doesn't kick that often. And what this ends up doing is because he's so limited on the feet, even though he can do these things, but he just chooses not to use them. What this ends up happening is that he relies so much on the overhand right, and then right away, Covington just ducked underneath the overhand right and took Woodley down. And then Woodley spent a lot of time, like he did a good job of doing a technical stand-up against the fence, but he did spend like a decent amount of time on his back. And by the time he got back up, and he was ready to stand up with Covington and kickbox again. What this does is that it puts kind of a mental block inside in this case Woodley's head, because now he has to sit. Now what he's saying to himself is, "Damn, he timed my overhand right. Now I gotta like really, really, really pick my shots because if I mistime my overhand right, he's gonna get another takedown and take me down, and then I'm gonna lose the round by being underneath this guy." So it makes him even more hesitant to throw his overhand right now. And then after this, it was just the Woodley modus operandi. He was circling with his back against the cage with no room to move and no stance to hit with any like real power, and he was hesitant to fire his right hand. What ends up happening is that Woodley just ends up getting clinched. He gets beat up in the clinch. He gets beat up on the feet as he's trying to circle out, or he gets taken down and he gets beat up on the ground. That's basically what you saw. There would be times where, I think it was in the second round, it was one of the earlier rounds, but Covington faked a takedown, and as Woodley dropped his hands to deal with the takedown because he was worried about it, Covington came up with the right hook, and he either stunned or he knocked Woodley down. I can't remember exactly. And another problem that Woodley has is that against people that are stronger than him, stronger wrestlers than him, or can match him in the wrestling, is that when he gets into the clinch, he gets into this bad habit of just holding on to the over-under. And then what's happening is that these guys, they're in the over-under with him, but because he's just stalling, he's not making any effort to move off of the cage with the over-under, or if they're strong enough just to pin him with the over-under, he's like against the cage, they start beating him up. Like you'll see, like Kamaru and Usman, he was doing the foot stomps and the like nice little right hook to the body. Covington was doing much of the same thing. He was beating up Woodley inside the clinch. There was a nice moment where where Covington ducked in for a takedown, and Woodley actually countered it with getting his own outside single, and he got Covington down, and he ended up in the front headlock. But yeah, he just ended up doing nothing. And I don't know if this is like Woodley is just, there could be a couple of things going on. Like off the front headlock, he didn't do anything. Like he didn't even attempt like to ground and pound, or he didn't even attempt to go behind on Covington. Like there's either he hasn't practiced those techniques, which I doubt because he's like a high level wrestler. Like a go behind, that's like wrestling 101. Two, he's either exhausted, and that could be a possibility. Like he does look pretty slow in a lot of his fights. So it does look like even though he's usually pretty inactive compared to his opponents, he is the one to fade first. So that may be a possibility. Three is that he's trying to save his cardio and just rather than expending it, trying to maybe advance his position or ground and pound, he just wants to hold on to the position and maybe save his cardio for the later rounds. Or four, maybe he just doesn't have confidence in himself, which I like, it kind of looks like he's kind of been losing confidence in himself. Like, even in this fight, as soon as he got taken down, he didn't want to throw the right hand. So I'm just thinking, like, maybe he's just like, he had the front headlock and he would rather hold on to the position rather than advance it because he's scared that he may lose it. Convington also poked Woodley pretty hard in the eye, and he took a really, really long break. And I was watching this fight with some of my friends who don't watch MMA regularly, and they were just laughing because they knew that Woodley was like tired and gassed already, and Woodley took a very long break. I think he almost took up the full 5 minutes for the eye poke. And my friends were just laughing. They're like, holy shit, this guy's going to take up the whole time. He's going to come out like an animal. And when he did come back in for the round, he did kind of look like he had a little bit more gas in him, and he came out a little bit more aggressive. But then within 5 seconds, he was back to backpedaling along the fence. And eventually, Colby gets him down again and actually opens up a big cut over Woodley's eye, his right eye. And then in the final round, in the 5th round, Convington goes for the takedown. Woodley tries to guillotine him, and he tries to guillotine him, but then he gets taken down. He loses the guillotine, and then as Convington is advancing the position, he ends up breaking Woodley's rib. So now Convington is basically back into title contention. A lot of people are saying that he should have had an immediate rematch with Usman because a lot of people actually thought he was winning going into the final round before he got TKO'd. But obviously, Jorge Masvidal skipped the line for everybody, and he ended up fighting Usman instead. So yeah, Convington just being the former champion and still top 5 Woodley, just basically, I think, put him back into title contention, just more validized. The only other person that it would make sense for him to fight is either Leon Edwards or Jorge Masvidal, but I think a win over Woodley would, I'm down to watch Usman versus Convington, the rematch, and I think a lot of fans and a lot of hardcore fans even would like to watch that. So I don't really care. As for Woodley, I honestly don't know. Maybe a fight against Leon Edwards or something like that. I think Leon Edwards is gonna beat up Woodley too, and then that'll be a 4 in a row for Woodley. So for the co-main event, we had Donald Cerrone versus Niko Price, which was a very good fight, I thought. So we had Donald Cerrone. He's pretty old now. He's basically a legend in the lightweight division, but this is the tail end of his career. Versus Niko Price. Niko Price, pretty good welterweight, decent welterweight, hard hitter. Niko Price is a big hitter, and Donald Cerrone is a notoriously slow starter. So you would expect Niko Price to come out really strong at the very beginning of the fight, and that's basically what he did. He came out, and what he was doing a really good job of doing was entering with what he would do is that he would throw the right front kick to the body and then step down and start throwing combinations, which is really good because Donald Cerrone, he is also notoriously has a weak liver. He reacts really badly to body shots. So if you enter on the right front kick, that's something that he has to deal with. He doesn't really want to get hit by those type of big hits to the body. So that gives and then as Niko steps down, he can enter in on Cerrone with punches, basically, because usually what will happen is that they'll either drop their hands to block the kick or they'll try to parry it, and that means that their hands will be down to deal with the kick. So you start entering with punches. And what Cerrone does is that whenever he does feel like he's in trouble, he'll try to duck in for a clinch or a little quick takedown. But what Price was also doing good was he was framing off of Cerrone. He'd frame off of him with his left arm, so he could deny the clinch for Cerrone, or he'd deny the clinch. He would deny the ability for Cerrone to grab the clinch, and then he would grab his own. Niko Price would grab his own single collar tie, and then he started hitting Cerrone with mad elbows. It was it must have been 5 or 6 elbows in a row, and Cerrone just ate them, which is insane because Cerrone, he is getting older and his chin isn't as great, but Cerrone has a chin on him. If you remember him when he fought Nate Diaz, he took 200 or 300 punches on the dome from Nate Diaz, and he kept on going. So Cerrone has always had a really good chin. He's always had a weak body, but very, very good chin. And yeah, it was classic Cerrone just getting beat up by getting beat up for like the first 3 minutes or so. And then what ended up happening is that after the first 3 minutes, you started seeing Cerrone start coming back into the fight. And a big part of this is that Niko Price, after about 3 minutes, he stopped going to what was working for him at the beginning of the fight, and that was entering off of the front kick or even the left roundhouse kick. What he's doing is that he kind of got more comfortable throwing punches, and he just started coming in with the combinations. And Don Cerrone, what he would do is that he would do a good job of either letting Niko try to enter in on punches, fade back, and then come back with his own combination, usually ending with like a left high kick. Or he would just duck into the clinch as, Niko Price would throw like a power punch. And then that's when Cerrone started doing a really good job of, landing more blows in the clinch, like knees and such. He would always like do this thing where he would try to like exit the clinch too. Like as they're exiting the clinch, he would throw up a high kick to try to catch Niko off balance or not paying attention. And, a bunch of the typical Cerrone techniques came back. His jab was doing really good. Like that famous, I don't know, after that Ally Quinta fight, everybody's been saying that Cerrone has like an amazing jab now. So his jab was coming back. He also hit Price with a pretty good intercepting knee. Like his intercepting knees are always very good to the body or to the head of like shorter opponents. And Cerrone did a good job of a couple times when he entered the clinch, he would duck down and he would, he would basically hit Niko Price with a nodder. And this is kind of like the gray area of fighting. Like obviously headbutts are illegal, but if you hit your opponent by a headbutt and it looks like you were just going for a takedown or you're trying to enter the clinch and the ref doesn't call it, that's like, that's just like something that you can abuse. And in a fight you want to win, right? So but the reason why a nodder, besides the ethics of this like gray area in MMA, the great thing about the nodder is that if you feel like an opponent is being like too aggressive on you, that's a really good way. Nothing will calm down a person more than running into basically a bowling ball right onto their face or their nose. You know what I mean? Like stepping in on somebody's head, it really, really hurts, and it can break your nose. It can stun you. So very, very like good cheeky way of slowing down your opponent. And then Niko Price ended up poking Cerrone again later in the fight in the eyes, and this actually caused Price to have a point deduction that ended up affecting the outcome of the fight, obviously. So basically what we have right now is that Niko Price is still landing like the odd kicks. He's actually doing really good with the left roundhouse kick, and when he enters the combination with kicks, starting with the kick, he's getting in on Cerrone, but then there'll be times when he's just entering with punches, and Cerrone will just, basically be able to counter whenever he's just stepping in with the punches. And eventually Cerrone actually gets a takedown in the third round. He hits Price with a takedown and quickly climbs to his back and gets his hooks in and rides on top of Niko's back for a big portion of the round until he gets slid off of it. And then in the end, the fight was a split draw. One judge scoring the fight for Cerrone, and then two judges scoring the fight a draw. So if Niko Price hadn't poked the fuck out of... Because he poked Cerrone so hard in the eye. Like literally Cerrone's eye was bleeding right after the poke. It was a really hard-ass poke. But if he hadn't poked him, he would have won that fight split decision because he would have been up on the scorecards on two of the judges' scorecards, and he would have lost the one scorecard. So it would have been a split decision win for him. So this is why we need better gloves in MMA. Damn it, UFC, Dana White, fix the damn gloves. Okay, what do we have next? Oh yeah, Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. This one, Gerald just kind of threw away the fight. Chimaev walked him down to the fence. It was southpaw versus orthodox. Just got that right. He got the right hook in faster. Knocked out Gerald. Nothing to really say about this fight. This means that Chimaev can hit hard and Gerald has bad striking defense. Now I guess Chimaev is about to fight Damian Maia now, because apparently that fight was announced before this fight even took place. So yeah, Chimaev, there is a lot of hype behind him, but it's just like he got, you know, two people. He's a really, really strong wrestler and obviously a hard hitter. Now we know that he's like a really hard hitter. On the feet anyways. We knew that he could always hit hard on the ground. Like he had a really, really good ground and pound. But now that we know that he's a hard hitter on the feet, to me, this Demian Maia fight, like, it doesn't really... You can tell what the UFC is doing here because, everybody loves Demian Maia, obviously. So if Demian Maia wins, that's a good thing. But Chimaev is, a really strong wrestler. And, Demian Maia has struggled, and a lot of his losses were against guys who had really good wrestling defense. So I'm only guessing that Chimaev has really good wrestling defense. And Demian Maia, not the biggest hitter on the feet, not the most technical either. So, and he has been knocked out recently by, Gilbert Burns, another strong grappler who's not going to get taken down easily, who can hit really hard on the feet. So, and, Tyron Woodley, same thing. Anderson Silva is a little bit different, but Anderson Silva has always, been really good at, like, takedown defense. That's, like, one of his big things. So, yeah, not looking like a good fight for Demian Maia regardless. If Chimaev really wanted to test himself, I would give him somebody a little bit, like, Chimaev versus Geoff Neal. That would be sick. That would be a good fight. Geoff Neal, really, really good, strong wrestler. But he's a very, very, very strong, striker, and he's like southpaw, I believe. Like it just like it would be a pretty interesting matchup. I think that'd be a pretty good matchup. I like that one. Oh yeah, and Gerald Meerkat, I don't know what to do with that guy. He's like not that great of a like. He's like maybe I don't know if he is top 15. I didn't check, but yeah, he's like nothing like too crazy. Then we had Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann, and this fight was hilarious because Johnny Walker had to get knocked out 3 times before he could knock out Ryan Spann with hammer fists and elbows to the back of the head. And also, apparently Johnny Walker was training at SBG for this fight, which was hilarious to me. Walker comes out with a hard leg kick, and he gets clipped with a really hard left hook and gets pushed to against the cage from that left hook. So he gets clocked right off the bat. He throws a nice leg kick, but throws a naked, so he gets clocked right off the back. And then Spann starts chasing down a takedown, which he gets. But Walker does a good job of actually, wall walking up and quickly breaking off the wall, which is actually pretty impressive. Because in this fight with Krylov, I believe, he was stuck underneath him for a lot of that match. And yeah, Walker kept on getting caught by left hooks here. And then he gets dropped by another left hook, and he gets quickly mounted. And what ends up happening is that he gets mounted, and Spann is like sitting on top of one of his legs. So Johnny Walker basically has an underhook underneath one of Ryan Spann's legs. So he uses that to help him bridge, which is like, it helps you bridge. It creates a more powerful bridge. But the problem is that anybody who's like, decent at jiu-jitsu will just put you into a triangle because you have one arm in and one arm out. And that's basically what Spann does. But Johnny Walker was able to posture up in time and get out of it, which, if he caught triangle, that would just be it. Oh my gosh. It's like Johnny Walker is just kind of, to me, he's just kind of turning into like a meme fighter. And then Johnny Walker gets hit by another left hook that drops him. So his third left hook that drops him. And Spann pursues the takedown, and he presses Walker up against the cage, like looking for a takedown. But then Johnny Walker is spreading his legs, and he starts going for hammer fists to the side of the head, but a lot of them are hitting in the back of Ryan Spann's head, and it only takes a couple to, getting hit in the back of the head sucks really, really, really bad. It's very disproportionately strong compared to getting hit in the face, like in the front of your head, because your skull is thicker in the front of your face rather than the back of your head, and also, like, you can get like pretty bad nerve damage because, like, some hit you in the your brain stem. Some hammer fists will hit you in the top of the spine. Like, that's pretty, like, pretty dangerous area to hit. And then Walker ends up murking Spann with those Travis Bound like hell blows, those little 12-6 elbows from the side when you're defending a takedown, and he knocks Spann the fuck out. Spann was looking good. Johnny Walker was looking terrible. Got knocked out 3 times in this fight. Spann was looking good until, he wasn't looking like crazy good, but, he was looking decent. But yeah, man, Gotta watch out for those. Gotta watch out for those strikes from that position. Okay, Mackenzie Dern versus Randa Markos was another fight that I liked. Just because of this, I'm just going to talk about this finishing sequence for Mackenzie Dern because it was pretty cool. So Mackenzie Dern, she basically makes her way to 3/4 mount on Markos, and she's in 3/4 mount, and she's underhooking Markos's left arm, and Markos is on her side. And because Mackenzie Dern can't free her foot from the 3/4 mount, she can't drop down into like an armbar or something, even though she has Markos's arm up and tucked in underneath her. She has like the underhook on it. She can't go for the armbar because her leg is stuck. So what she does instead is that she weaves her right foot, I believe. Yeah, she weaves her right foot over Markos's left shoulder to get the foot across. Like it's interweaving with her it's coming from over her shoulder and underneath her chin. And then Dern falls to the side with Markos's hand. Like she does like the armbar where you're doing the armbar, and instead of doing this a straight armbar, you're tucking the armbar under, you're putting the wrist underneath your armpit, and you're falling back like that. But because her leg is still stuck in the 3/4 mount, she can't pop her hips fully into the armbar. And I'm guessing that women it just seems like they have like more flexible joints than men, so they can. That's why you'll see them like be in a full armbar basically and not tapping, because they're like joints are made out of rubber. So Markos is what Dern is trying to do actually is she's trying to change. She thinks that she can change the angle of the armbar. She'll switch from underneath her right armpit to a straight armbar on her hips to putting the wrist underneath her left armpit. So she just keeps on switching her grips and the angles to try to get it, but it doesn't really work. So what she ends up doing is that she starts hitting Markos with some hard ass hammer fists to the body and to the face. And then she's able to kind of wiggle her foot free from Markos's legs. And then she's able to fully extend her hips into Markos and get the tap. So yeah, this was a really, like, Mackenzie Dern, crazy on the ground. I like her. I like her a lot. Randa Markos, I don't know. She's like 10-10 now, 10-9. She's like a 50-50 record now. But I'm pretty sure she's not the worst woman in this was bantamweight or featherweight? Bantamweight? Can't remember. Anyways, all I know is that she's probably one of the better fighters in the division. I also watched Kevin Holland versus Darrent Stewart in their middleweight scrap. And yeah, this one was okay. This one was a pretty fun fight. Kevin Holland, a little bit more bouncy taekwondo. They say he's a kung fu fighter, and Darrent Stewart is, more traditional, like just a little bit more traditional stance, a little bit hunched over, chin tucked type of deal. And from this fight, I don't think I've watched a Kevin Holland fight or a Darrent Stewart fight before. But basically, Kevin Holland likes to fight with his lead foot. He likes to side kick and throw roundhouses off it and then step down into punches off of that kick. And Darrent Stewart is like, he's kind of more of like, does a little bit of everything. He has like a good right hand, decent kicks. And so at the beginning of the fight, Kevin Holland gets caught right off the bat because he throws a left leg kick and gets caught with a right hand. What ends up happening is that Holland grabs a clinch and pushes Stewart to the fence. And she throws a lot of hammer fists to the thigh of Stewart. And I'm not going to lie, like, these guys are pretty big. So I would not doubt that those like actually like hurt. Like, and that might actually affect like your movement. If you have like Pat Charlie horse in your thigh, it might affect your movement later on in the round. And they end up breaking off the clinch, and Holland actually catches Stewart with a right uppercut because Stewart is like in a really bent over stance, so like he's kind of hunched over. And Stewart ends up getting he ends up getting a single leg takedown, and he gets a single leg and then he pushes Holland against the fence. And then what Holland does is that he uses a guillotine grip to as a takedown defense. And there's going to be another, the other fight, my favorite fight of the night, Misrad Bektic and Damon Jackson. There are techniques that you like use. They're kind of like anti-wrestler techniques, like kimuras and guillotines, because those are submissions from basically advantageous positions that are like, it's typically an advantage to be in those positions for wrestlers. So being on a single leg or a body lock, usually wrestlers have a very like those are like naturally powerful positions for them. But as soon as you throw on the kimura or a guillotine, there is the danger that like you get caught into the submission if you're not if the technique isn't performed like perfectly, or if you're not like managing your defense properly. So it can create hesitancy in wrestlers to go for those techniques, and they might bail out, or they might get just stuck in those positions as trying to defend the submission. Yeah, Stewart, what he does is that he uses the guillotine as like a takedown defense, and he uses the kimura later in the fight too. There's a point where Stewart has a body lock on Holland, and he's pushing him up against the fence, and Holland uses the kimura to basically reverse the position. Yeah, so what you basically saw was just like a lot of Kevin Holland stepping in with the lead leg, attacking the lead leg, entering with it, and then stepping in with punches, and catching Darren Stewart, and he caught him with a couple times with like a decent left hook. And a lot of it was also Darren Stewart just trying to like push Holland against the fence with the clinch, or shoot for a takedown and work for a takedown, and Holland doing a really good job of defending it. But at the end of the round, what ends up happening is that Stewart finally gets Holland to the ground, and he ends up in Holland's half guard, and he does a really good job actually of hitting Holland with nice elbows and hammer fists. And what Stewart was doing was that usually what you want to do when you're in the bottom of half guard is turn to face your opponent, and Stewart was trying to turn away, kind of like use his back and his shoulder and his arm to deflect Stewart's ground and pound, and counter with like elbows from the bottom, which was kind of cool. But like it's just like this seems like he just put himself in a very compromising position, rather than it's always better to improve your position than to attack from a disadvantageous position. So this was actually my favorite fight of the night, Misrad Bektic versus Damon Jackson. So apparently Jackson was a 4-day replacement, and I forgot to see who he replaced, but he was a 4-day replacement for Bektic, and you start to see this is a perfect example of like this like crazy time right now and during the pandemic, during lockdown, is that these late replacement fights, like it's just kind of like luck of the draw, because sometimes you're getting out of shape, you're getting late replacements that are coming in out of shape and getting blown out of the water, and other times you're getting late replacements that are, because they're late replacements and they're so different from like the opponents that the first fighter was originally training for, they can cause problems, and we're seeing people lose, and this is a good example of this. And like Bektic, he like his whole game, he was basically executing his game plan to a T. His whole thing is double legs and body lock takedowns to the ground, riding you with the ground and pound, just riding the positions, like the Dagestani go-to technique. But what Jackson was doing a really, really good job of was that he was always making sure to use those like anti-wrestler techniques, those like guillotines, and like the whole thing is that he was going for guillotines and kimura grips the whole fight, which if one, it would like stall out Bektic for a bit, and it would make him be very, very careful on advancing position or attacking, and that would delay the ground and pound. So it gave Jackson like time to recover and whatnot, and he's using the kimura and the guillotine. But yeah, Bektic, he's a savage with the takedowns. Yeah, he took Jackson down and ended up in his half guard, and Jackson was trying to go for a deep half guard, and Bektic actually ended up hitting him in the back of the head, or he was saying that it was in the back of the head, but the ref was saying it was. So they had to get the position, the fight reset in the middle of in the octagon. And then yeah, all it was that Bektic would walk Jackson down either with strikes or takedowns to the fence, and he would be beating him up against the fence, take him down, and then he would beat him up on the ground. And in between those beatings, Jackson would have some like pretty close moments where he would grab a guillotine or he would grab like a kimura grip. There was one point where this one was actually pretty cool, is that Jackson was on one knee trying to build up against the fence, like wall walk, and Bektic was kneeing him to the body, which was like really nice. And then after Jackson builds up against the fence, Bektic would go for a body lock. Jackson would grab a kimura, and then Bektic would be, wouldn't strike, and he'd be more concerned about trying to get out of the kimura. And then if you took him down, he would end up in a guillotine. And most of the time, what he was trying to do was that he would just tripod up and thus use his arms he'd really push down on the grip and try to push down on Jackson's elbows to open up the hands and let go of the grip. But what ends up happening is that in the third round, and then what ends up happening in the third round is that Bektic is going for his own guillotine, and then as he's falling down, Jackson's trying to jump over him and kind of cartwheel over him, but he ends up upside down against the cage, so his whole weight is going through his neck while he's upside down, held in an upside down guillotine. And then what ends up happening is that he ends up rolling all the way over and ending up on the top of Bektic, and he ends up in Bektic's top of Bektic's half guard, and he ends up elbowing Bektic in the back of the head. What was very impressive was that Jackson came out very, very fresh for this fight, and he was obviously the fresher fighter for whatever reason. Maybe he's just better cardio, or maybe Bektic wasted a lot of his cardio just trying to finish the fight, or whatever it may be. But this is the actual finishing sequence, sorry. But Bektic is tired and he shoots a takedown, and Jackson grabs a guillotine grip and he rolls Bektic over, and then he ends up on a mounted guillotine and he submits Bektic. So this is why you shouldn't take any late fights or late replacement fights, especially at bantamweight, featherweight, or lightweight. The three deepest divisions, fuck it, man, because the guy who is in the top 30 of the division, number 30 lightweight in the world, can become a champion just as easy as number 5 in the world. You know what I mean? So yeah, late replacement fights, not the best. And this is kind of bad because Bektic, he's actually a really exciting fighter, really good fighter, but now he's on a 3-fight lose streak. He lost to Dan Ige. He lost to what was the other person? I forgot the other person. I think he also lost to Damon Jackson now, a late replacement, a 4-day late replacement. That cannot look good. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. Hopefully he doesn't get cut. Give him a top 15 guy, even though he just lost to an unranked guy. I don't know. Give him somebody he can beat, please. What else was left on the card? Not much. Derrick Minner versus TJ Laramie. That was a fight that I was interested in just because I'm Polish Canadian. I'm from Canada. I was born in Canada. And TJ is Canadian. He's a Canadian prospect, and he, won on the Contender Series. He got his first fight, and this was his big debut. And yeah, it was pretty underwhelming. He just ended up pushing Minner against the cage and getting guillotined. He just left his head up there, and when Derrick fell to the ground, he pulled guard to finish the guillotine. He had one of Laramie's legs, feet stuck in between his legs, and Laramie would try to push on Minner's leg to free his foot, but then Minner readjusted it, and Laramie just ended up tapping. So hopefully he's still able to hopefully he gets another fight in the UFC, and hopefully he gets a better performance. Randy Costa versus Journey Nowson. Really quick fight. Randy Costa, very tall, switches to southpaw, catches him with a classic high. Journey Nowson, he was in orthodox, and Randy Costa was in southpaw, and he just hit him with the left high, the classic left high kick from southpaw stance, knocked him out. So nice on him. And then finally we had Tyson Nam versus Jerome Rivera, which was a decent fight. I know Tyson Nam is a flyweight that's kind of I think he just broke into the top 15 or whatever, but I didn't ever watch one of his fights or Jerome Rivera's fights, but right away, you can tell Nam is all about the counter right hand. That is what he's looking for. And Rivera is a tall southpaw, and what Rivera was looking for was the inside left low kick to the inside of Nam's left leg. So typically when you're in southpaw and you throw the left kick, you usually typically aim it to the body or the head, but he was aiming to the inside of Nam's leg, which is good attrition weapon. But he gets countered off of that right away. And then he ends up getting countered 3 more times by the right hand. And all that's happening is that Nam is just walking Rivera down, and then he'll throw a nice combination to the body, and end the combinations with the right hand to the head. And then he ends up in the second round countering that left low kick to the inside of his thigh. He times it, counters it with the right hand, and knocks Rivera out pretty bad. Considering that they're flyweights, that was like pretty impressive. So Tyson Nam, good fight too. Those were all the fights. This weekend, we have UFC 253, which is a stacked main card with Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa headlining it. There's also a fighter from my city, Calgary, Alberta, that I've met a couple times. He's cousins with one of my friends, Hakeem Dawadu. He's fighting Zubair. Can't pronounce his last name. On that card, he's opening up the main card, so I'm pretty excited to see some Calgary talent on a big stage like that. And I'm pretty excited for that fight, Israel versus Costa. That seems crazy. Oh yeah, Jan Blachowicz. I'm also Polish. He's making his run for the lightweight heavyweight title, and Dominic Reyes is, making stake to his crown because we all know that he lost to John Jones. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Like it if you watched it on YouTube. If you want to leave a review, like a 5-star review, that'd be pretty dope because apparently it helps with the algorithm of being found on YouTube or on like podcast. So yeah, I'll leave a link in the, you can always give me a follow on all my social medias, and I'll leave a link down below for you to do that if you like. And yeah, that was the Bodyshot podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you after UFC 253. Peace.